first story, my best friend, named Bella, framed me to wear a white dress at her wedding to humiliate me, believing I had feelings for her fiancé. So, I exposed her to her fiancé, and that's how she ruined her wedding. After the fiancé called it off, knowing the truth, now she blames me for ruining her life, calling me a homewrecker. OMG, my head is such a jumble right now. Let me try to make sense of all of this. When I was 26, female, we moved, and our next-door neighbors had a girl my age named Bella, 7F. We immediately connected and grew up thick as thieves. Our families were also close. I moved a couple of hours away for college, while Bella stayed home. She would come visit me frequently and stay with me, and we had great times. I met Barrett, 26M, now in an economics class, sophomore year, and realized we had a lot of friends in common. He was a smart, attractive guy, so we ended up hooking up a few times after study sessions. It was fun, but there wasn't really long-term chemistry, so we remained friends. We never even talked about dating. We weren't close after that, but were on group text threads together and saw each other frequently at parties. I introduced Bella to Barrett at a party senior year, and it was love at first sight for her. She interrogated me about him, and I informed her of our history. She seemed pretty upset about the fact that we had hooked up, but I assured her that there was absolutely nothing romantic there and that she had my blessing to pursue him. She did, and after a few months, they started officially dating. She was over the moon. I was happy, and she was happy. I graduated and accepted a job 6 hours away from home shortly afterwards. Bella and Barrett ended up moving in together in my hometown. I visited them frequently at first, but life got busy, so we ended up seeing each other annually during the holidays. Last Christmas, my family hosted a Christmas Eve party with our two families, at which Barrett proposed to Bella. It was a heartfelt proposal, and everybody was thrilled for them. Bella wanted to talk about nothing but wedding planning that holiday, and we had tons of fun brainstorming ideas together. There were no signs of what was to come. Over the next few months, I expected to be formally asked to be Bella's maid of honor. She had mentioned this over the holidays, but the ask never came. She started screaming my calls. Finally, I received a save the date in the mail and still hadn't heard from her about whether I was at the wedding, so I got her on the phone and asked her. She told me that she had thought it through and didn't think that I should be at the wedding at all because I lived so far away. She thought it would make coordinating bridal events too difficult. She was making her cousin, whom she doesn't even like, her maid of honor. I was pretty hurt by this. I was her closest and oldest friend. I introduced her to her fiancé, and she was friends with him too. I told her that I could get the time off work and would buy plane tickets, whatever was required of me to participate. I didn't think it was going to be as challenging as she thought. She shrugged this off. Instead, she directed the conversation to whether I was going to be bringing someone to the wedding. I was a little confused by this question because I just had a bad breakup, and she knew all about what went down. I told her that since I wasn't seeing anybody currently, I'd probably be attending solo. She told me that she would keep my +1 open until the last possible minute and encouraged me to try to find a date so I wouldn't be lonely. I thought this was a nice gesture, but I reassured her that with my family present and tons of mutual friends from college and our hometown, I would be fine. The next few months passed without much incident. I didn't hear a ton from Bella. I probably could have reached out more, but I was still stinging a bit from not being asked to be at her wedding party. I also saw on social media that she had an engagement party that she had not told me about or invited me to, which also hurt, but I didn't say anything. I figured we were just growing apart. It happens. Then, 6 weeks prior to the wedding, I got a call from Bella. She told me that one of her bridesmaids had dropped out and that she was hoping that I could fill in. I would not be going to any of the events as those were already booked, but I would be at the wedding party. I was thrilled, relieved, and accepted immediately. She told me that she was doing a reverse color palette for the bridal party where all of the bridesmaids and groomsmen were wearing white, and she and the groom were wearing black. This didn't seem that strange. Bella has always liked to stand out and has an unconventional taste. She apologized for the late notice and asked if I could find a white dress in time. I had a white slip dress already that would work and sent her a picture of it on the call to see if it would work. She verbally approved it and tagged it with a thumbs up on the text chain. This will be important later. The wedding was at noon, so we were supposed to meet to do hair and makeup at the venue at 8 a.m. I left my parents' home early, arrived in sweats with my dress in a bag, and greeted Bella and the other girls. We had fun drinking champagne and getting ready. About 2 hours prior to the ceremony, Bella told everybody to get our dresses on so we could take some pictures. I grabbed my bag and went into the bathroom to change and tweak my makeup. When I re-entered the room, every last bridesmaid was in a blue dress. I was the only one in white. My stomach dropped. My mind raced back to the conversation I had with Bella. She had said white, right? I hadn't misheard. No, I was certain she had called out the reverse color scheme. I had Googled it. No, this was a setup. Bella was in the middle of the room in a bathrobe with a resigned look on her face. She said to her cousin, "I told you she was going to do something like this." Her cousin approached me and asked what I was wearing. I mumbled that Bella had told me to wear white. Bella didn't even blink. She stared back, huffed out a laugh, and said something about how of course I would have to make today all about me. The cousin started screaming at me, going off on me about how I was jealous, in love with Barrett, and how completely unhinged I was. Honestly, I froze in that moment. I was so spun around by how fast everything went from great to shit that I couldn't even find the words to defend myself. Eventually, I stammered out that I had another dress at my parents' house and could go home and change. Bella said something like, "I think we both know that this is the end of our friendship. I've given you too many chances. It's time for you to go." I started to cry. I didn't really know what was happening or what she was talking about, but I knew that whatever was going down was really bad. Finally, my legs started to work again, and I fled. I left all of my things at the venue and just ran into my car and went home, sobbing in the white dress. About a half hour later, my phone blew up. Texts from nearly everyone in my life were telling me that I was bitter, that I was a witch, that I needed to grow up and get over my jealousy, and asking how I could do that to Bella. Even my mother sent me a text telling me how disappointed she was in me and that we'd talk when they got home. I did what any rational person would do in this situation. I broke into my parents' liquor cabinet and got drunk. As a result, the conversation when my parents finally arrived home was somewhat confused. My dad wouldn't even look at me, and my mom and I kept talking past each other. She outright didn't believe that I had been told to wear white, and I didn't understand why. Then, finally, she said something like, "Because of everything else that happened." I was like, "What are you talking about? What does that mean?" And she said, "You know, your ultimatums to Bella." The next few hours revealed the truth. Over the last several months, Bella has been building a fiction with nearly everyone in my life that I am mentally unstable and madly in love with Barrett. She has concocted a web of outlandish tales and systematically poisoned my family and friends against me. My boyfriend apparently dumped me because of my feelings for Barrett. He cheated, and I dumped him. I told Bella that she needed to choose between me and Barrett, which never happened. I told Bella that I couldn't be at the wedding party because I couldn't support her marriage, given that Barrett was meant for me. I had a major meltdown before the engagement party, and that's why I wasn't there. On, lies on top of lies. In all of these stories, Bella has painted herself as the patient, long-suffering friend, trying to deal with a friend clearly going through a tough time. She expressed her understanding of my unrequited love for Barrett and empathized with how hard it must be for me to see her marry the love of my life. She has made great efforts to try to sustain our friendship despite how complicated the situation is. The lie has been going on for so long that my mom literally did not believe me. Finally, I grabbed my phone, handed it to her, and told her to go through my text messages with Bella. I asked her to show me any evidence of any of that happening. It was when she was scrolling through and reading our messages that she saw the picture of the white dress I had sent Bella with her thumbs up on it. I had completely forgotten about it. The absence of any ultimatums or Barrett drama in our texts and the picture of the approved dress flipped my mom. She finally believed me. She was horrified that she had bought into a false narrative. She called my dad into the room and explained what was going on. My dad isn't the type of person you want to piss off. We had to spend significant energy trying to calm him down so he didn't walk next door and rip the house from the foundation. My mom still says that I'm a bit of an a-hole because I should never have assumed that I could wear white to someone's wedding. I should have confirmed with the other bridesmaids about what they were wearing, and that was part of my job as a member of the bridal party. Fine, I own that, But it doesn't change the fact that I never meant to hurt Bella, and she has been setting me up for this epic fall for months. The next day, I sent screen caps of my call history with Bella and the photo of the approved dress text to multiple people. Unfortunately, this is where my occupation works against me. I am a graphic designer, and people believe that I photoshopped the image. Trust me, if I were going to Photoshop some proof, it would have been a hell of a lot more compelling than somebody liking an image. So, pretty much nobody believes me except my mom, dad, and one of the other bridesmaids, one of Bella's friends from college, whom I don't know well. She was there during the dress incident, and she found me on social media and DM'd me that she could tell from the stunned look on my face that I was telling the truth. She said that Bella had a pretty bad case of COVID at the beginning of the year, and ever since then had changed as a person, becoming cruel and self-absorbed. She said the wedding events had been horrific, Bella was a monster, and she was planning on going no contact now that it was done. So, that's 3 people out of hundreds that don't think I'm an a-hole. Everyone else does. My reputation was destroyed. My life is in tatters. I don't think I'm the a-hole, but I submit myself to Reddit's judgment. Relevant comments/OP answers some questions. Did Barrett maybe say something about him having feelings for you that you did not reciprocate? This is possible, I guess, but I'm not aware of any incidents. I think perhaps this has more to do with Bella's cousin putting poison in her ear about me than Barrett actually having feelings for me, but that's just a gut instinct. I don't actually know. Where was Barrett in all this? You said he was your friend, so it seems odd that he would watch his bride attempt to ruin your life for the fun of it. The first time I saw him after last Christmas was at the rehearsal the night before the wedding. I gave him a hug, congratulated him, and expressed how excited he must be. We talked about my drive up and how some of our mutual friends' flights had been canceled. It was entirely benign. Bella was talking to somebody else, and I greeted her a bit later. I never saw him the day of the wedding because I didn't make it that far. I have no idea what he makes of all of this, but I have to imagine that he's been poisoned to believe I'm some deranged stalker as well. I haven't reached out to him because I'm worried doing so would add fuel to Bella's narrative. If your parents were at the engagement party, why didn't you tell them you weren't invited? My parents were not at the engagement party. My understanding was that it was more of a friend's engagement party than a familial one, but they did know that it happened, and I do think they expected me to come home for it. There was a lot of miscommunication between my mom and me. My parents are pretty laid back and uncomfortable with emotions and drama, so they didn't pry too deeply. My mom would ask me questions like, "So, Bella told me a little bit about what was going on. Are you okay?" And I would assume she was talking about my cheating ex when my mom was actually talking about my unrequited love for Barrett, and I would respond with something like, "I'm struggling a little, but I'm getting through it. I'll be okay. Thanks, Mom." And like that, we kept talking past each other. Looking back, there were a few things my mom said that confused me, but I didn't seek clarity at the time, in response to some more questions on that thread. So if they expected you to come home for it, why did they never ask you about your plans to attend and when you would be home? I wish I could answer your question, but I genuinely do not know the timelines from my end. I don't know what my parents knew when the party invites went out, or when my parents were told by Bella that I couldn't handle going. All of this happened without my knowing about it. So, I just don't know. Trust me, the fact that my parents thought all of this stuff was going on with me and didn't properly talk to me about it has been difficult to swallow. Also, how is it that, as you're getting ready at the venue, you never see her wedding dress or talk about the flipped colors for the wedding until it's time for the bridesmaids to get dressed? I was boxed out of all of the other wedding events except for the rehearsal, which lasted about 30 minutes. I was never really put on group texts about the wedding, which I thought was owed to my last-minute involvement. Dresses were put in garment bags and put on a rack. At one point, her bridal gown was removed from the room to be steamed. I don't think it was back yet when this all went down, which was why she was still in a robe. My understanding was that she wanted photos of us helping her get dressed, which was why we were getting dressed first. Now, I suspect the timing was intentional. I was the only person who thought there was a flipped color palette, so I don't know why that would have come up in conversation. We talked about a lot of stuff, but wedding colors didn't come up. It seems like both you and your parents are poor communicators, and Bella relied on you not reaching out to her parents, the other bridesmaids, or your parents to ask about wedding plans. Yeah, my relationship with my parents is, well, I think I'd need a whole additional AITA post for that. It's complicated. There is no judgment bot, but most comments were NTA, not the aholi, or just confused and asking for information. Update. Almost 2 months later, I've gone back and forth about updating my post. If you read my update, hopefully, you'll understand why. For safety reasons, this will likely be my one and only update. For those of you being about length, I included a TLDR, too long, didn't read, at the end. Before I get started, I want to address a question a lot of commenters had about my parents. A lot of people were questioning why my mom would hear all of that stuff about me and not check in on me or confront me. It's because I'm an apostate. Last year, I left the religion my parents raised me in, which Bella is still involved in, so she has superior credibility. My politics differ too from where mom and dad sat. I was a sinner, capable of any act of evil because I turned my back on biblical principles. They assume that the broader religious community in this town believes the same about me. Despite this, I tried to have a relationship with my parents. I am an only child. They are my only family. But there was strain and distance there. For example, I did not tell my parents a lot about my breakup because the circumstances of that would reinforce some of my parents' worst beliefs about me. It's also the reason I haven't been home in the last year. It's also one of the reasons I assumed things were strained between Bella and me in the last year. I didn't bring it up because, as everyone wanted to point out, my post was already too damn long, and this one will be too. Sorry. I would have guessed that the events of the wedding would strain my relationship with my parents further, but unexpectedly, it has brought us closer. I think many of my parents' strong opinions of me were more about how they felt my leaving the church would ultimately reflect on them in the community. But now that the community has rallied against me and the worst has happened, they've circled the herd. They've waged holy war in their church on my behalf. In the last couple of months, it's weirdly cemented that my parents actually do care about me, despite our differences as people. So, in that regard, this awful event has been a blessing. A lot of the awkwardness between us from last year has faded, and it really feels like they've chosen one side, and that side is me. We had a great holiday together, so in that way, I'm glad this happened. On to the update. In the immediate aftermath of the wedding, as people suggested, I sent out a screen recording of my text messages with Bella, all of them going back months, to counter her narrative that I was unstable and explained my side of the story. There were 3 camps that emerged as a result. 1. My high school friends, most of whom are religious, have been extensively brainwashed by Bella. None took my side, except for the one bridesmaid who had already contacted me. 2. My college friends, who are closer to me, none of them had heard Bella's whisper campaign and accepted the evidence immediately. Several of them told me that they had never really liked Bella and that she had talked smack about me behind my back. This was news to me, but also a relief because these are the relationships I most don't want to lose, and it looks like I won't. 3. The college friends who were closer to Barrett just didn't really care. A lot of these guys are classic dude brothers that are drama-averse, so I'm not shocked they aren't relishing the chance to wade through and litigate the evidence. There is no hostility coming from these people anymore, but there is no support either. I can live with that. Bella's nuclear and extended family, I have given up on. When I was back for Christmas, I tried to go over to speak to Bella's parents, who were like parents to me also, and they refused to even open the door. I left a letter in their mailbox. It went unacknowledged. In general, things settled down into a new normal, and I just focused on my life and my work and tried to move forward. I went home for the holidays and just hung out with my parents. Life was okay. Then, on January 1st, I signed into an older email account that I haven't used in a while to reset a password, in the spirit of New Year digital housekeeping. I started going through old messages, intending to close this account for good, when I saw an email from my ex with the subject line, "I win." I cannot describe the gut punch that I felt when I saw that. Mail, I freeze up now just writing about it. My ex. Let's call him Matthew. He was the perfect boyfriend until he wasn't. He became extremely controlling after our first year of dating. He wanted to control what I wore, what I ate, who I talked to, who I connected with, and what I posted on social media, etc. He was very cunning and nuanced with the way he tore me down slowly over time. But then he slipped up. I found out he was cheating, and I woke up enough to get out of there. The breakup was a living nightmare. He refused to allow me to break up with him. We were living together. He installed tracking software on my phone and bugged my car. He had people at my job reporting to him on my movements. I couldn't get away from him. I couldn't hide. He kept showing up. He held my dog hostage. The police were useless because he was never physically violent and was careful not to write his threats down. I was in absolute hell for months, living under the terror that he would show up again. I had changed my job, my number, my address, my email account, and my social media profiles were all private. This was the one place I forgot to block him. The "I win" email was sent the day after the wedding. He said that he had become close with Bella after we broke up. He called himself the architect of my demise. He said he had fed Bella's paranoia about me and Barrett, and that together they had planned my punishment. He said losing everyone important in my life was what I deserved, and then he said we should get back together, unless I wanted more unfortunate things like this to keep happening. Yes, he is a delusional prick. It took me a while to collect myself and get my shit together after reading that. I fell apart for a few days. My mom helped pull me back together and now knows the details about what happened with Matthew. She connected me with a family friend, an attorney, who is currently helping me file for a restraining order against Matthew. I tried during the stalking period but couldn't afford an attorney and was denied. I think with the email evidence and the attorney saying things the right way, it will be granted this time. But the hearing is not for another couple of weeks. It is on Zoom, and Matthew will get a chance to be there. I am terrified to see him, even just on a screen. If you read this, Matthew, please realize that I am not so terrified that I won't taste the fuck out of you if you ever come near me again. Once I had dealt with my own safety, I had the realization that I was in possession of absolute proof that the wedding incident was a setup. I considered blasting it out everywhere, but I still have so much shame about being in an abusive relationship and cannot bring myself to do it. So, I decided to just forward it to Barrett with a small amount of explanation. Barrett did not respond to the email. I do not know what happened in Bella and Barrett's household after that, but what I do know is that 2 nights later, Bella drunkenly drove her car to my parents' house while attempting to park in their driveway. She ran over their mailbox. When my parents answered the door, she started screaming about how I'm a homewrecker. In her drunken ramblings, my parents were able to figure out that Barrett had left her. Her parents were called over from next door to collect their drunk daughter. My dad said they seemed extremely embarrassed. I know a lot of people here will probably be fist-pumping the air that Bella met with some karma. I'm not one of them. Matthew is a monster, and I know firsthand how charming and convincing he is. Bella, much like I did, fell for his act. Her happiness has been destroyed by Matthew, too, and I have a really hard time blaming her now that I know that he was pulling the strings. But she also made her choices. I'm not dumb enough to reconcile with her, either. My number one priority is my safety, and anybody who has ties to Matthew is somebody I need to stay far away from. Bella will have to find her own path back to good. There is a role that opened up on my team in another country. It's a manager position, which would be a promotion for me, and my boss thinks I should apply. While it would be harder to have even more distance from my folks, I think being in an entirely new country might help cultivate a feeling of safety for me, one that I'm not sure I can get in this city now. So, that might be what's next for me. I don't really know how to end this properly. I'm just tired. Thanks for the support, Reddit. I probably won't sign into this account again. TLDR, my abusive ex-boyfriend Matthew was feeding Bella's paranoia about Barrett and me. He was involved with planning my punishment with Bella. He sent me an email to an old account bragging about his victory and destroying my relationships and asking to get back together. I forwarded the email to Barrett. Barrett left Bella, who drunkenly drove her car into my parents' mailbox. I am seeking a restraining order against my ex and am considering leaving the country. Second story. My younger daughter beat the shit out of her older sister, which landed her in the hospital, and we are kicking out her older daughter. I decided to put this here because I don't feel comfortable telling my friends about it. My wife and I have 2 daughters, Melissa, 25, and Megan, 18. Melissa works in banking in the city, while Megan recently started working at a hairdresser not far from our house. The girls have always had a bit of a sibling rivalry, but are generally civil to each other. They have very different personalities. Melissa is very girly and a proper princess, but also very smart and confident, whereas Megan is a bit tomboyish and, while talented, isn't really academic, which is why she chose to get a job after leaving school rather than pursuing higher education. Megan also recently got together with Sam, her best friend from school. We're happy for them, as he's a decent guy. Melissa has always enjoyed winding up her little sister, and over the past few weeks, she has taken to mocking their relationship for some reason. We've warned her not to be cruel, but she doesn't really listen. The two have not done anything but argue over the past few weeks, and Melissa has questioned why Sam doesn't find someone more attractive and is constantly telling Megan that he could do better than her. She was close to tears because of this on Saturday. Megan and Sam were hanging out in the garden while I was sorting out some old equipment in the shed. My wife and Melissa came to join us. The girls started arguing again. After Melissa said, "Hey, ugly," to her sister, they argued. Melissa said she was going to prove that Sam would rather be with a better-looking woman. Out of the blue, she tried to kiss him. He pulled away straight away, and while everyone was shocked, Megan was furious and punched Melissa in the face. Melissa screamed and tried to protect herself, but Megan didn't stop. She kept punching and kicking her and didn't stop even after she'd knocked her to the ground. She also shoved my wife back when she tried to grab her. I would have broken them up, but I was making sure my wife wasn't hurt. Melissa is severely asthmatic and began having an asthma attack when she was on the ground. Even when she was clearly struggling to breathe, Megan didn't stop kicking her. It was only here that Sam, who was aware of Melissa's condition, pulled her back and took her to his house to calm down. My wife called an ambulance, and Melissa was taken to the hospital where she's been for the past few days. Thankfully, they were able to bring her asthma attack under control, but she has a broken jaw and bruises everywhere. She's also told us she will press charges against her sister unless we kick her out. What do we do? It's doubtful any kind of peace can be arranged between the sisters, and we've been unable to convince Melissa not to do this. We kick Megan out, or she ends up getting arrested. In theory, she could go and live with Sam, but obviously, we'd rather our child stay with us. But even if we somehow convince Melissa not to go ahead with this, what if she attacks her sister again? Advice needed. Update. My wife and I spent a lot of time discussing what we're going to do about what happened. Megan is for the moment staying at Sam's parents while Melissa is being kept in the hospital because her asthma symptoms are persisting. We eventually decided that Megan should be our priority at the moment. Some of the people on the other post seem to think we had favoritism towards Melissa. That isn't the case. We love them both. However, I will admit that Melissa got more attention than Megan did when they were little, simply because her medical problems were a huge worry for us. I think most people would agree that making a sick child's care a priority is not immoral. That said, it was absolutely wrong that we treated Melissa too leniently in her behavior towards her sister. We should have made it clear that her remarks about Megan's appearance and her relationship with Sam were not acceptable. If we'd done that, maybe things wouldn't have gotten this far. We went to see Melissa in the hospital yesterday and told her what was going to happen. We told her that if she makes an effort to get Megan arrested, then Sam will report the unwanted kiss as sexual assault, and we will back him up. We also stated that we would not make any statements supporting her accusation against Megan. Melissa then started to sob and said we were being unfair to her, that we were siding with Megan, and that we were letting Megan get away with hurting her. We also told her that at the moment, Megan was our priority. Melissa has a fully established career, whereas Megan has only just gotten a job. Melissa makes enough money that she could easily get her own place if she wanted, which is why we're going to let Megan stay with Sam for 2 months, during which time we expect Melissa to get her stuff together and find somewhere of her own. Melissa was horrified and upset when she heard this. We tried to comfort her and told her we would help her with anything she needed. We said we'd help her find a place if she wanted, and that we'd still be involved in her life. She was crying her eyes out at this point and said that she was being punished for getting attacked. The mother tried to soothe her and assure her that we loved her, but she said that if we loved her, we wouldn't be kicking her out at this point. She was distressed, and her asthma symptoms started to come back. She was breathing heavily, and I called someone. Even as she was struggling, we were ushered away. We could tell how heartbroken she was, and it was painful for us. While I think this is the best thing we can do, I'm not necessarily sure it's the right thing to do. Melissa, while financially sound, is emotionally dependent on us, and I'm not sure she could cope on her own. Even so, Megan is our priority now, and we have to do what's best for her. We've also started talking about getting her therapy if that's what she wants, and hopefully, in a few years, we can work towards some kind of peace between the sisters. Did we do the right thing?